Picture a couple sitting in a dimly lit room. They've been together for 5 years. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut with a knife. One of them looks across the table, eyes pleading, and says the words that have destroyed more relationships than infidelity, financial ruin, or distance combined. They say, "Just be honest with me. Tell me the truth." It sounds like a breakthrough, doesn't it? It sounds like the pinnacle of healthy communication. But here is the darkest, most unspoken secret of modern relationships. That phrase is almost always a trap. Because what happens when you actually tell the honest, unfiltered truth? What happens when you strip away the sugarcoating, the polite deflections, the gentle reassurances, and hand them objective reality? I'll tell you exactly what happens. A nuclear meltdown. Tears, screaming. Accusations that you are cruel, unsupportive, and that you have fundamentally changed. But when you lie, when you look them dead in the eyes, and tell them exactly the delusion they want to hear, suddenly, you are the perfect partner. You are praised for your empathy. You are rewarded with affection. Today, we are going to dive deep into the psychology of this terrifying game. Because once you understand the mechanics of what I call the honesty paradox, you will never look at your romantic relationships, your friendships, or even yourself the same way again. Let us start by dismantling the greatest myth modern society has sold us. The myth that humans desperately crave the truth. We don't. We are biologically and psychologically wired to crave safety, validation, and comfort. Truth is sharp. Truth is uncomfortable. Truth demands change, accountability, and self-reflection. And for a generation that has been raised on the idea that their feelings are the ultimate metric of reality, truth is perceived not as an illumination, but as an attack. When a partner asks you a dangerous question, and we all know exactly what these questions sound like, they are not initiating a transfer of information. They are initiating an emotional compliance test. Let's look at the most classic example. Have I let myself go recently? Or, do these clothes make me look bad? Every person who has ever been in a relationship feels a cold sweat break out when they hear this. But why? Because it is not a question. It is a demand for submission. The person asking already knows the answer. They have mirrors. They know how their clothes fit. They are experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. The painful mental friction of knowing their reality does not match their self-image. They are in pain, and they want you to medicate that pain with a lie. If you tell the truth, honestly, you haven't been taking care of your health lately, and it shows. You have chosen integrity over their comfort, and in the modern relationship dynamic, choosing your own integrity over your partner's emotional comfort is treated as a war crime. You will face the silent treatment. You will face tears. You will be cast as the villain in the story they tell their friends. But here is the truly twisted part of the game. If you lie, if you say, "No, you look exactly as perfect as the day we met," they know you are lying. Deep in their subconscious, they know. So why does the lie work? Because the value isn't in the compliment. The value is in the sacrifice. You just proved that you are willing to betray your own eyes, your own brain, and your own moral compass just to protect them from feeling a negative emotion. You sacrificed your reality for their delusion, and to a deeply insecure person, that sacrifice is the ultimate drug. It is proof of absolute power. I want you to really think about the profound damage this does over time. The philosopher Carl Jung talked extensively about the shadow, the hidden, suppressed parts of our psyche. When you are forced to constantly suppress your true thoughts to maintain a superficial peace in your relationship, you are feeding your shadow. You are actively burying your authentic self. I worked with a client recently who was a brilliant entrepreneur. His partner decided to quit a stable job and start a highly speculative, incredibly risky business venture without doing any market research. 6 months in, they are bleeding money. $10,000 in debt. The partner sits down at the kitchen table, looks at my client and asks, "Do you think my business is going to succeed? Should I take out another loan?" My client is a numbers guy. He can see the ship is sinking. He knows that taking another loan is financial suicide for their family. But he also remembers the last time he offered constructive criticism and how it resulted in a 4-day screaming match about how unsupportive he is. So, what does he do? He looks at the person he loves and lies. Of course I believe in you. You just need more time. A year later, they are $50,000 in debt. The business collapses. They are on the verge of bankruptcy. And what does the partner say? Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you tell me it was a bad idea? This is the insanity of emotional hostage-taking. They punish you viciously when you tell the truth. They train you to become a compulsive liar to survive their emotional volatility. And then they hold you accountable for the consequences of the lies they demanded you tell. You are damned if you do, and you are utterly destroyed if you don't. We need to talk about the concept of emotional terrorism because that is exactly what this is. It is the weaponization of vulnerability. Agree with my version of reality, or I will make your life a living hell. It disguises itself as sensitivity, but it is actually the most aggressive form of control. People will set up these elaborate traps. If I died, would you remarry? Say yes, and you never really loved them. Say no, and you are a liar. Do you think my friend is attractive? Say yes, and you are a creep. Say no, and you are patronizing them. They scatter these emotional landmines across the living room of your relationship, and then they sit back and watch you try to tiptoe across. There is a sick thrill in it for them. It is the thrill of dominance, watching a grown, intelligent adult stumble over their words, sweat, and backtrack, all because they are terrified of triggering an emotional explosion. It reduces a partnership between equals into a dynamic of a tyrant and a peasant, and modern society cheers this on. We have completely pathologized male honesty and normalized toxic emotional demands. We are told, happy spouse, happy house. We are told that communication is key, but the definition of good communication has been warped. Today, good communication means the ability to read your partner's mind, anticipate their triggers, and validate their feelings, even when those feelings are entirely disconnected from objective reality. If someone says, I feel like you don't care about me, and you point out that you just worked a 60-hour week to pay the mortgage, cooked dinner 3 nights in a row, and fixed their car, you are accused of invalidating their feelings. It doesn't matter what you did, it matters how I feel, they scream. We have elevated feelings to the status of undeniable facts. But feelings are not facts. Feelings are internal alarms, and sometimes those alarms are broken. Sometimes you feel unloved because you have childhood trauma, not because your partner is failing you. Sometimes you feel disrespected because you have a massive ego, not because your partner actually insulted you. But if you dare to gently suggest that their emotional reaction might be disproportionate to reality, you are accused of gaslighting. This creates a terrifying environment where truth is no longer a shared objective reality, but rather whatever the most emotionally volatile person in the room says it is. So, what happens to the person on the receiving end of this? What happens to the partner who is constantly walking on eggshells? They shut down. They become what pop psychology calls emotionally unavailable. But let me tell you a secret. They are not emotionally unavailable. They are emotionally strategic. They have learned through repeated trauma that every piece of honest information they hand over will eventually be forged into a weapon and used against them. You tell your partner you are struggling with anxiety at work. 2 months later, during an argument about who forgot to take out the trash, they scream, "This is why you're failing at your job. You can't even handle simple tasks." You tell them your deepest insecurity about your family. A year later, in front of friends, they make a passive-aggressive joke that hits that exact sore spot. Every truth is ammunition. So the logical survival-based response is to stop providing ammunition. You stop sharing your fears. You stop sharing your dreams. You stop offering opinions on where to eat, what movie to watch, or how the house should be decorated. Whatever you want becomes your mantra. I don't mind becomes your shield. Everything is fine becomes your fortress. And then the absolute irony occurs. The tyrant looks at the shell of a person they have created, the partner whose spirit they have systematically broken through years of punishing honesty. And they complain to their therapist, "My partner doesn't communicate with me. I feel so disconnected." You feel disconnected because you made connection a lethal act, real intimacy. The kind of intimacy that sustains a lifetime is impossible without the truth. Intimacy is not just physical affection. It is the profound spiritual experience of being fully known by another human being and accepted anyway. You cannot be fully known if you are terrified to show your true face. When you build a relationship on a foundation of forced lies and managed delusions, you are not living with a partner. You are co-starring in a play. You are both reading scripts. You are managing PR for a brand called your relationship, and it is exhausting. It is why so many people feel incredibly lonely despite sleeping next to someone every single night. Let's dig even deeper into the psychology of the people who demand these lies. Why do they do it? Why do they prefer a beautiful lie over a hard truth? It stems from a profound lack of internal validation. When a person does not have a solid core of self-worth, they have to outsource their ego management to their environment. Their partner essentially becomes their emotional support animal. Their partner's job is to regulate their self-esteem. If they feel ugly, their partner must tell them they are gorgeous. If they feel like a failure, their partner must tell them they are a genius. If they act terribly and ruin a social event, their partner must tell them that everyone else was the problem. They demand that you act as a distorted funhouse mirror that only reflects a perfect image back at them. And the moment you act like a real mirror, the moment you reflect the truth, they shatter the mirror. But here is the ultimate tragedy of this dynamic. The tragedy that makes this whole game a zero-sum nightmare. While they demand the lie, and while they will punish you for the truth, they absolutely do not respect you when you cave in and give them the lie. Think about that. It is the most vicious paradox of human nature. They will scream at you until you submit, but the moment you submit, they lose a fraction of their respect for you. Because deep down, in the quietest, most hidden parts of their subconscious, they know they are out of control. They know they are acting irrationally, and what they secretly want, what they are desperately testing you for, is to see if you are strong enough to stand your ground. They want a rock. They want someone who is so grounded in reality that even a hurricane of tears and anger cannot move them. When you fold, when you apologize for a truth you know is real, when you swallow your integrity to soothe their anxiety, you prove to them that you are weaker than their emotions, and you cannot feel deep, primal attraction to someone you do not respect. You cannot feel safe with someone who is afraid of your moods. This is why you see couples where one partner bends over backwards, does everything right, apologizes constantly, lies to keep the peace, and yet their partner is chronically unhappy, resentful, and ultimately loses attraction to them. They created a compliant lapdog, and then realized they actually wanted an equal. So, how do we break this cycle? How do we escape the honesty paradox? It requires a radical, terrifying, and profound shift in how you operate. It requires the implementation of radical honesty. You have to stop playing the game. Completely. Cold turkey. When the trap question is asked, you refuse the premise. Do you think my friend is better looking than me? That is a trap question designed to start a fight, and I am not going to participate in it. I love you, I am with you, and that is all that matters. When they demand you validate a delusion, you hold your ground. Are you saying this is my fault? Yes. I am saying your actions caused this outcome. I am here to help you fix it, but I will not lie to you and say you have no responsibility. When the tears come, when the silent treatment starts, when the accusations fly, you must do the hardest thing a human being can do. You must sit in the discomfort of their negative emotions without trying to fix it. You must realize that their emotional regulation is their responsibility, not yours. You can be kind, you can be compassionate, but you cannot be their emotional hostage negotiator anymore. I can see that you are incredibly upset by what I just said. I understand this is hard to hear, but it is the truth. I am going to give you some space to process this, and we can talk when things are calm. And then you walk into the other room. You let the storm rage. You do not text them apologies. You do not buy them gifts to smooth things over. You stand firmly in the reality of the truth. This will cause chaos at first, because when you change the rules of a toxic system, the system fights back. The emotional terrorism will escalate. The meltdowns will get louder. They will try everything in their arsenal to drag you back into submission. But if you hold the line, one of two things will happen. The first possibility is that the relationship will end. And I know that sounds terrifying, but let me ask you this. What exactly are you losing? A lifetime of walking on eggshells? A lifetime of suppressing your own voice? A lifetime of managing a grown adult's fragile ego at the cost of your own sanity? Losing a prison is not a tragedy, it is a liberation. The second possibility, and this happens more often than you might think, is that the dynamic will fundamentally shift. When they realize that their emotional terrorism no longer controls you, when they realize that you value your integrity more than you fear their anger, when they realize that you are an unmovable object, the respect returns. They are forced to look at themselves. They are forced to confront the reality they have been running from. And slowly, the relationship transforms from a master-servant dynamic into a partnership of two grounded, authentic adults. Intimacy finally has room to breathe because the air is no longer poisoned with lies. If you want a relationship that actually means something, you have to be willing to destroy the false version of it. You have to be willing to look your partner in the eyes and hand them the uncomfortable, heavy, sharp truth. It is not easy. It will cost you peace in the short term, but the long-term price of 1,000 tiny lies is the complete erosion of your soul. Stop lying. Stop participating in the delusions. Reclaim your reality. Because a painful truth spoken in love is infinitely more honourable than a comfortable lie spoken in fear. And for anyone out there who finds themselves constantly testing their partner, constantly laying these emotional traps, I challenge you. The next time your partner tells you something you do not want to hear, instead of exploding, instead of crying, take a deep breath and say, "Thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth." Watch how it changes them. Watch how the walls come down. Truth is the only foundation that doesn't crack under the weight of time. Build your life on it, whatever the cost.